Hey everybody, and welcome to the second book in Mrs. A's story time. Get a blanket and get all snuggly. So I wanted to read you Robot Girl by Malorie Blackman. It looks cool, it looks exciting, and it says on the front cover, how would you feel if your dad created a monster? So let's begin. So it's called Robot Girl by Malorie Blackman. Go on, Mum, you must know, Mum groaned. Claire, how many more times must I tell you? She said. I don't know what your dad is working on. You know he doesn't like to show us a project until it's finished and he's happy with it. It has to be perfect before he'll let anyone else in the lab. But what do you think it might be? I asked. I mean, why did he need all that data about me? Like how long my fingers are and how far I can see and how tall I am and all that. And why did he scan my mind for brain patterns? And what's that got to do with... Claire, read my lips, I don't know. Mum raised a hand to swat a fly away that was buzzing around her. She made contact and it fell dead at her feet. I decided not to push my luck. It was clear that Mum was getting more than a little annoyed. She almost had sparks flying out of her eyes. Look, Claire, Mum said, your dad said he'd show us his project later today and he will. Until then, you'll just have to wait. She seemed a bit calmer now. She picked up the fly and dropped it into the bin by her chair. I stood up. Where are you going? Mum asked. Do my homework, I said. To do your homework or to play on the net? Mum asked. I don't play on the net, I told her. I work, I study, I gather data, I support my learning. But most of the time you play, Mum said with a laugh. I had to laugh too, because it was true. Well, I'm not going to play now, I said. I'm going to talk to my pen pal. Oh, you found one at last, have you? Mum asked. Mum, where have you been? I said. I've had a pen pal for 3 weeks now. Her name is Maisie, and we've got so many things in common. It's amazing. What about all the other people who messaged you? Mum asked. It's all right, I said. I've told them that I've found a pen pal and that I only want one for the time being. I hope you were polite, Mum said. Always, I said. You know me. I tried to ignore Mum's snort of laughter behind me as I ran up to my room. I couldn't wait to talk to Maisie again. To tell the truth, I don't have many friends. Most of the kids in my class think I'm a bit stuck up. They think I fancy myself. I don't. I promise I don't. I'm just a bit shy, and sometimes that makes me appear rude. But everybody has heard of my dad. He's famous. And so they think that I'm too good for them, and that couldn't be further from the truth. But no one in my class has spent enough time with me to find out. I mean, I'm proud of my dad, of course I am. It's just that he cares more about his work than he does about Mum and me. Mum says that's normal and I'll understand when I grow up, but somehow I don't think so. Dad's away in his lab as often as he can manage it. I've lost count of the times I've heard Mum and Dad discuss it. They're so polite. I wish they'd have a shouting, screaming argument. At least that would be more real. But they say shouting and screaming and nonsense like that is for children, not adults. And then they say, you'll understand when you grow up. To be honest, I'm not sure I want to. I needed to talk to someone about it all. I needed to talk to Maisie. To Maisie at maisie.mail.private.uk from Claire at claremail.private.uk. Hi Maisie, how are you? Dad still hasn't told us what he's working on. The minute I know, I'll message you. Dad always swears Mum and me to secrecy, but you're almost like my sister, so I can tell you. I know you won't tell anyone else. Dad's company is so excited with his new project, at least that's what Dad said. I'm not surprised you've heard of my dad. He's a technology genius. At least that's what they call him on the news. Dad says this thing he's working on will make the kit we use now seem like Stone Age tools. His words, not mine. I hope your dad spends more time with you than mine does with me. Get texting. I'm waiting. Your friend, Claire. And then the message was gone. I hoped Maisie would be online so that I'd get a message straight back. I was in luck. I didn't have to wait long. Hi Claire, it's great to hear from you again. I'm glad you said what you did. To tell the truth, I think of you as a sister too. You talk about your father as if you don't like him very much, but I envy you. I'd love a family, a real family, any kind of family. That's why it's wonderful that you want us to be as close as sisters. I live in one room that I meant to call home, but it isn't, not a proper home. My father looks after me, but he doesn't care about me, not about who I am inside. He just looks after me because he hopes that someday I'll make him rich. I heard him talking to his friends about me. They talk in front of me as if I'm deaf. I bet your father isn't like that. Write soon. Love, Maisie. I frowned at the screen as I read Maisie's message again. I was just about to reply when Mum called me from the kitchen. "Claire, your dad's called," she yelled. "He's at the lab and he wants us to come over as soon as we can. He's ready to show us his project." I ran out of my bedroom. Maisie was forgotten. "You mean we're going to see at last what he's been doing for the past year?" I said. I couldn't believe my ears, and it was odd, but even though I resented all the time Dad had spent away from us while he worked on his new project, I still couldn't wait to see it. Mum clapped her hands. "Get your things," she said, "and remember to look impressed." "May I present AIE, the future of technology," Dad announced. "Come on out, AIE." The thing walked into the room and stood next to Dad. "Well, what do you think?" Dad asked with an eager grin. I stared at Dad's latest project and felt horror bloom inside me. I couldn't help it. It was horrific, like nothing I'd ever seen before. It was shorter than me and rounder. If it had had 2 more arms, it would have been some kind of nasty giant insect. "What's wrong?" The smile on Dad's face vanished like a torch that had been switched off. I looked at Mum. She frowned at me. Nothing, I said. But it was too late. Dad had read my face. "Come on, Claire, tell me what's wrong with it." Dad's voice was cold, angry. Why does it look like that?" I asked. "Like what?" he snapped. So strange," I said. "It looks, I don't know, round and soft and squashed." "Ah, now that's interesting," Dad said. He rubbed his hands together with glee. "My co-workers and I believe that technology in its current form has gone as far as it can. We need a brand new way of working, and so we asked permission to experiment on some DNA from the Natural History Museum. We got hold of some DNA samples that were over 4,000 years old. Imagine that, 4,000 years old. We had a few false starts, but in the end we rebuilt the DNA. And that's how we developed what you see here." Dad did everything but bow when he'd finished his speech. He reminded me of a proud peacock. I walked up to his project and prodded it with my finger. It felt nothing like I'd ever touched before. "Why does it look so horrible?" I couldn't help it. I had to say the word. "What do you mean?" Dad said. "It's meant to be you." Dad grinned. "I modelled her face on yours." I stared at him. He must have lost his mind. This thing was meant to be me. What an insult. Of course, she's not an exact copy of you, but she's based on you. "I don't understand," I said. I wasn't sure I wanted to understand. "I scanned your brain patterns to create her mind," Dad told me. "I wanted her to be able to reason things out for herself, so I decided to imprint your brain patterns on her processor, and it worked. She has a mind of her own." My head was fizzing. "You used my brain patterns to create this?" I was appalled. "Yes, of course," Dad said. "Remember a couple of months ago when I recorded your memories in the Cogno chip? Well, I used the data from that chip to create AIE." This was getting worse. AIE stood in front of me. Its lips turned up into what I can only assume was a smile. "Mark, Claire is right. Why does it look so odd?" Mum asked Dad. "Well, she's made of a new kind of material like nothing we've ever seen before," Dad said. "And I found that the more she learned and thought, the more her processor grew. Imagine that, it got bigger and heavier. I didn't expect that at all. The material the processor is made of grows with it too." Dad paused, like a teacher who wanted to check that his students were keeping up. "Her processor is a brand new design," he went on. "It's like nothing anyone's ever seen before. It's not like ours. It sends electrical and chemical signals. Isn't that fantastic? I never thought she could be this good, not even in my wildest dreams. Oof, spooky. Okay, part 2 tomorrow.